Disclaimer: everything that is discussed, posted is strictly for educational and historical purposes only. It does not promote nor condone illegal activities. Some thoughts by Indian Sonny. The most maligned and endangered breed is the American Pitbull Terrier. The alleged purpose of today's society is to protect and save animals, everything from whales to goldfish, elephants to mosquitoes. Everything except the pit bull. This attitude against the pit bull defies logic, belies their alleged purpose, and can only be described as organized genocide of an innocent breed. The pit bull was developed as a companion and gladiator. Unfortunately, the word gladiator, which simply means one who will fight to defend, has had a sinister connotation attached to it by bleeding hearts who still believe the moon is made of Swiss cheese and mentally live in the land of Oz. From his inception, the pit bull has faithfully fought to defend his master from ill-intentioned scoundrels. All surviving animals have fought to defend themselves. However, this admirable quality has been developed in well-bred pit bulls to a greater degree than in any other man-loving animal. As recently as 20 years ago, the pit bull was a relatively forgotten and unknown dog. About this time, so-called non-profit animal welfare agencies were desirous of raising even more money to fill their greedy pockets, and what better means to accomplish this self-serving goal than to misinform a misguided public. Just as scoundrels in other money-raising schemes have duped a trusting and unsuspecting public, these activists swindled many well-meaning people throughout the country, on the pretext of preventing horrible cruelties to animals, which existed only in the imaginations of these authors of misinformation. They created horror stories about vicious atrocities taking place with pit bulls. Every dog or cat that suddenly strayed from home became the victim of the depraved pit bull owner. Even pigeons were brought in these blood-curdling fabrications. Their heads were reportedly pulled off and the spurting of the blood poured over the heads of pit bulls, presumably to make them blood-crazed and even more vicious. Ripley's Believe It or Not could not have sold more sinister tales to grief-stricken lost pet owners. Suddenly, the pit bull was cast into the limelight. People who never before heard of a pit bull were intrigued by these hair-raising stories. Same people were repelled. Sickos and opportunists were both driven and stimulated. Pit bulls fell victim to the cruel methods of being raised under horrible conditions to enhance the blood-crazed characteristics fabricated by the activists. Opportunists began breeding cull stock to meet the demands of a warped and growing market. Little or no care was taken to select individuals who possessed the great traditional qualities of the pit bull. Rather than gameness and character being bred for, it became big, bigger, biggest, mean, meaner, and meanest. As a result of the unprovoked intentional conspiracy against the pit bull by animal activists, a few ill-bred pit bulls have bitten people. These bite victims should liable and lay direct blame for their tragic experience on animal activists for having created a prevented and an unprecedented demand for pit bulls through contrived, sensationalist media coverage which implanted horror stories in the minds of irresponsible, feeble-minded people who have, in some cases, allowed such attacks to occur. It is totally out of character for a well-bred pit bull to bite a person without provocation. This can readily be documented by researching the past 100 years of recorded pit bull history. Surely if biting people was a common characteristic, their history would have recorded it. Sadly, because of the exaggerated media coverage and misrepresentation which invariably have a magnet effect on troublesome thrill seekers, a market exists for culls which enable opportunists to cash in at the expense of the pit bull's reputation. To illustrate the depth of the negative humane-inspired breeders have had on pit bulls, let us examine the size of today's ill-bred, biting pit bulls. It is generally accepted history that the pit bull was produced by cross-mating a 15 to 20 pounds terrier with a 25 to 45 pounds bulldog. This size held up for 150 years. Human opportunists, driven by blood-curdling fabricated accounts, set out to produce a dog that would be 3 times bigger and 3 times meaner. They succeeded. Check the size today. Pit bulls accused of attacking people. Incredibly, within the span of 20 years, pit bull are being marketed solely on the premise that big is better, means the thing. What a tragic mutation of a great breed brought about by self-serving prevaricators masquerading as crusaders for animal rights. The pit bull fighting ability and gameness have, in recent times, been used to depict grim and a crazed, bloodthirsty killer. Nothing could be further than the truth. Instead, these attributes exemplify the qualities that made the founding pioneers of thus once great country stand out from all other nations. How fitting that the Pitbull's name include the title American. If the Pitbull were human with these same attributes, he would be heralded as a world champion and, as a true champion, is self-assured, endowed with pride and courage, not given to unprovoked attacks on lesser opponents. So too is the Pitbull. The hatred of humane leaders against the Pitbull has been responsible for policies and legislation enacted which in many instances prevents any Pitbull from being adopted once he has had the misfortune to be taken to an animal shelter for any reason. He is condemned to death without having done anything wrong. The integrity of the Pitbull's character has brought him into sharp contrast with influential foes steeped in unholy compromise and questionable values. Must the Pitbull die simply because humane leaders have rejected him to promote their own financial interest? Others beware if they are successful in this unwholesome attempt. Who or what will fall victim to their next despicable money-raising scheme? Regrettably, not only are courage and commitment, once the measuring stick of America, no longer held in high esteem, they are not even understood. Edited by Indian Sonny 1986. Well, there you have it, folks, some thoughts by Indian Sonny.